Well, everyone, it's time for us to go ahead and compare the iPhone 14 and the iPhone XS Max and see which specific phone is the better one for you. Now, obviously, the XS Max is a little bit older, but if you want to pick up some phones I would recommend this year, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off side by side, the XS Max is a much bigger phone than the iPhone 14. This phone was the $1,000 flagship, actually the $1,099 flagship from 2018. It had a 6.5-inch Super Retina OLED display on the front, and it was a pretty big phone then, and it's still a massive phone. It's a beautiful display. It is a 60Hz panel, but it's the same thing on the 14. We have a notch up top. We have a little bit of bezel around it, but still, it's still a very good built phone, and it doesn't really feel cheap at all. On the iPhone 14, we have a 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display, and this panel is better. I have to change this wallpaper, it's kind of ugly, but I think this display is really good. You have the notch up top that is smaller than the XS Maxes, but it sticks out more than the XS Maxes, which doesn't make too much sense. No fingerprint sensors, no nothing like that, no 120 hertz. So it's a lot of similarities. It's just this one is a tad bit smaller than something like the XS Max. In terms of thinness and thickness, though, what's very interesting is I think the XS Max may actually feel a little bit like a thinner device. I'm not really too sure. I feel like because now I do have a skin on the back of my XS Max, so it has a little bit of thickness. But the 12 or the 14, because this thing has this flat side to it, you're kind of always feeling the thickest point. The XS Max kind of curves on the side, so that's why it feels like a little bit of a thinner device, although it may actually be a little bit thicker. It's kind of the same thing. Now, the XS Max also has a SIM card tray on this phone. With the iPhone 14, we do not have a SIM card tray, so keep that in mind. We have lightning ports on the bottom of both these phones, which is great. And on the back, we have dual camera setups on both, which is very interesting. But the camera setups are very different than one another, and I don't want to give the impression that the XS Max's camera is better or anything like that. The iPhone 14's camera is definitely going to be the better one, which we'll talk about in a second. The XS Max here has a skin on it, which I actually do like this one a lot. And with the 14 and the XS Max, they both had the same type of glass back. So not the frosted glass back, but that standard glass back between both. And both these ones feel very premium, None of these phones feel cheap. The XS Max still feels like $1,000 phone. The 14 still feels like $1,000 phone too. Both these phones feel very, very good. Now we do have this MagSafe capability on the back of the iPhone 14, which is actually really cool. The XS Max does not have that, but still, still has wireless charging on both. You have 5G on the iPhone 14 and, you have 5G on the 12s and above. You have dual eSIM, I believe, on both, which is great. Or you have one SIM card here and another dual SIM and another eSIM on the XS Max, which is nice. And that kind of covers it up on the outside. You have IP certification on both too, which is great. And that kind of covers it up on the outside between both of these devices. Now, in terms of software and longevity, this is going to be one of the bigger areas where the XS Max isn't really going to keep up too well with the iPhone 14. The XS Max, I think it's one of the last versions of software it's going to be on. I think it's still going to get iOS 17, but whether it gets iOS 18, I'm not too sure. This is the second to the lowest series of iPhones that are basically supported. So the 2017 iPhones are supported, and the 2018 ones are really just second into place. So don't know how long these ones are going to last. If the 10s end up getting another year, that'd be great. Or the 2017 ones, if those end up, continuing on, that'd be great. But you just can't tell with Apple sometimes. So I'm not too sure. I guess we're going to have to wait and see. But regardless, the phones like the iPhone 14s are definitely going to last a much longer time than the iPhone, like the iPhone XS Max. These phones are 4 years newer than these ones. So you're going to be getting a much better experience on this phone than the iPhone XS Max. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there. Now let's go into a speed comparison between both these phones. The iPhone 14 has that Apple A15 Bionic chip inside of it with 6 gigabytes of RAM, where the iPhone XS Max has that Apple A12 Bionic chip inside of it with 4 gigabytes of RAM inside of it. So let's go and see which one's the faster one between both. All right, everyone, let's go ahead and kind of kick these things off. So you can see all the apps are clear in the background, so let's get into it. Phone calls, 3, 2, 1. Okay, gonna hop out of here. Let's go and do music, which I guess I don't even have here. App stores, 3, 2, 1. Okay, as you can see, the iPhone 14s took a little bit, or the iPhone XS Max took a little bit of time, but still kind of as expected. Scrolling through, both are very smooth. They're both at 60 hertz, but I think the 14 is a little bit of a smoother one to be able to keeping up with it. News, 3, 2, 1. And definitely faster. So two different kind of experiences on both. I don't know why the iPhone 14 or the XS Max didn't refresh. Camera, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I would take a photo, but this one does have that night mode thing on. Hopping out of here, let's go and get into mail. 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's go and hop out of here. Let's go get into photos. 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's go and hop out of here. Okay, so many pop-ups on these phones. Hopping out of here. Let's open up some of these third-party applications. We can get started on this page, I guess. Netflix. 3, 2, 1. Okay, iPhone 14 again is a faster one. Let's try thank you. 3, 2, 1. And definitely the iPhone 14 was the faster one. The iPhone XS Max was just slightly behind it. Let's try snake versus blocks. 3, 2, 1. And again, the iPhone 14 was into it a little bit faster as well. Let's try where we at Genshin Impact. We can try that one now, but I don't even know if that one. I'll have to search for that one. Let's try Twitter. 3, 2, 1. Definitely seeing loading speeds are much faster on the iPhone 14. Let's try Instagram. 3, 2, 1. And I knew I was going to be logged into an account here, so we'll just kind of load it out of this one. Let's go and do Snapchat. 3, 2. So I don't even know where the Snapchat is. I don't think this is the right one. 3, 2, 1. As you can see, that's not the right one. We can try Temple Run 2, 3, 2, 1. And even on this one, I think the iPhone 14 Pro, again, is going to be the faster one. The iPhone XS Max just a little tad bit behind. Again, nothing super crazy. Stack 3, 2, 1. And I'll definitely tell you, I mean, the iPhone 14 is going to be the faster one in pretty much every single area. But you can see the XS Max is still doing a decent job at keeping up with it. And I will say, even on little things like going between like pages like this and going back to the home page, it's going to be a smoother experience on the 14. But I think the XS Max still does a decent job at keeping up with the current generation of phones. So that kind of covers it up in the speed comparison. In terms of the cameras, like I said before, I think the 14s are definitely the better cameras here for sure. The XS Max wide in a telephoto lens, with the iPhone 14 wide in an ultra-wide lens, which I prefer an ultra-wide lens over just a telephoto lens. 4K at 60 on the front, 4K at 60 on the back of both these, but you do get 4K at 60 on the front of the iPhone 14, where you only get 1080p at 60 on the front of the iPhone XS Max. So definitely keep that in mind. With something like the iPhone XS Max, I think this camera, I think it was good when it first came out. I don't think really it's an amazing camera right now, but it still gets the job done. I think, for having that, 10x zoom, it's really, really nice. You don't get that on the iPhone 14, but you still get a pretty good lens on the iPhone XS Max. It's not outdated. You are pretty limited on features. You only have like video mode and portrait mode. Compared to nowadays, I mean, we do have a lot more modes. And that is the one thing with the XS Max. I mean, it's not a dated camera, it just kind of didn't really get the camera upgrades like the iPhone 11 Pros did. With the iPhone 14s, on the other hand, we are getting a lot more camera modes. We're getting that ultra-wide sensor, which I love a lot. Much bigger lenses and much better quality lenses, which is great. Video mode, we now have 4K at 60 on the front and the back on these, which is great. We have this new cinematic mode, which is awesome. And we can now do cinematic mode up to 4K. And we can also utilize this new action mode too, which is really cool. So there's a lot of good stuff on this camera, and that's why I think it is a much better camera overall than the iPhone XS Max. And to be honest, I kind of do think that the iPhone 14 is the better phone than the iPhone XS Max. I think if I had to choose one of these phones, I definitely would prefer something like the iPhone 14. I think I'd be getting a much more stable and just a much better phone overall on something like the iPhone 14. This phone's probably going to be giving you better battery life, better performance, better cameras, longevity, like a much longer lasting phone on this type of device. Pretty much everything you would want on a phone is much better on the iPhone 14. The XS Max, you are getting a bigger body, so some people may prefer that if you're playing lots of games or watching lots of content. You may like it on a bigger phone, and it's a much cheaper phone than the iPhone 14 as well. You can probably find these things for like $300 to $350, so that is substantially cheaper than buying something like the iPhone 14 at around $800. So the choice is yours, but I do think the iPhone 14 is worth the money. If you want, there's some other phones I recommend in between these two, like the iPhone 11 Pro Max, the iPhone 13 Pro. You can even throw an iPhone 12 in there if you need to. So you have lots of options here, but that's kind of how to sum this one up. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out. Till then.